Did Jimmy Butler just play the Phoenix Suns? Let's talk about it on another edition of Southwest Bias.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.
Of course, brought to you by Branded Bills. Elevate your brand with Branded Bills, just like I am right now. Use code PHNX for 20% off your first order over at brandedbills.com. Jimmy Butler, the talk of the NBA town. Jimmy Butler to the Phoenix Suns has been something that Suns fans have been monitoring for a couple of weeks now, and it's definitely been a topic that we've dove into over on PHNX Suns, but things just got a lot more interesting last night as Jimmy Butler's post-game press conference went off the rails, talking about how he just wants to find joy again playing basketball and how he can probably not find that joy playing for Pat Riley and the Miami Heat. Those two have been playing a game of chicken for a couple weeks now. Jimmy Butler's reporting about him wanting to leave, his agent denying it, that all looking kind of fake and suspect right now. Shams Charania standing on business, Pat Riley going out and making a statement in the middle of the season saying that the front office is not going to trade Jimmy Butler. And then, of course, it comes down to last night with Jimmy just being very brutally honest in his post-game press conference and also brutally honest with his body language on the court. If you're watching Jimmy Butler play, he's getting benched for multiple fourth quarters. He's just standing in a corner. He's just not the Jimmy Butler that he was when he took Miami to a finals, to two separate finals. This is a Jimmy Butler who is completely checked out. And the reason why I ask, has he played the Phoenix Suns? Is the Phoenix Suns, are they the ultimate goofy here? They just getting the wool pulled over their eyes and they don't know any better because the Suns are not in a good spot right now. And I think a big conversation to have about why the Suns are not in a great spot is because there is this looming overhead feeling of change, of this group and this roster not succeeding to the level that they were expected to and paid to perform at. And when you have that, and we played a soundbite from Cam Johnson on Young Man of the Three over on PHNX Suns, talking about how just the slightest bit of chemistry issues, the slightest bit of change, the slightest bit of the thought in the back of your mind that you or one of your teammates is going to get traded can be absolutely detrimental to your chemistry, to your ability to fight, stay locked in, and just be a winner on the margins, which is a team in the Phoenix Suns that has been a loser on the margins. And you start to wonder, what is that core reason? You can unpack it in a lot of different ways. You could talk about, is it just the identity of the team? Is the fact that they don't have one, that they're inconsistent, that they're up and down? Is it Mike Budenholzer's system and his coaching and his philosophy is not rubbing off on the way that it's supposed to? Well, yes, they're adopting three-pointers, and yes, they've changed how their offense looks. The team just doesn't feel like they're cohesive. They're together like they're a winning team right now. Is it on the superstars? Is it on Bradley Beal, whose $50 million contract is definitely being underperformed at? Is it on Tyus Jones for being a little bit too small and the whole team for being built a little small? And on the front office, I think you could look a lot of different places for blame. But I think if you ignore the human aspect of what's been going on with the Jimmy Butler saga, especially with how Phoenix Suns fans, and I'm not saying I blame anybody, and I am a Phoenix Suns fan, and I have said on the record that I would trade Bradley Beal for Jimmy Butler. You have media personalities like Stephen A. Smith, who's harping on that right now. Of course, fans creating fake trades. You add all of that up and you start to think to yourself, well, did Jimmy Butler play the Phoenix Suns? Are the Phoenix Suns getting played right now? And the only way that that's not true is if Jimmy Butler ends up on the Phoenix Suns. And Mark Stein talked to Espo the other day. That video up right now on our YouTube channel, which we appreciate all of you hitting that subscribe button. Over 35,000 of you have hit that. And of course, if you're listening on audio, make sure you rate 5 stars, subscribe to the PHNX Suns audio feed that you're on right now, or to the Southwest Bias audio feed as well. But he had Mark Stein on, and Mark Stein basically laid out every single, road bump and loophole that the Phoenix Suns would have to jump through to get Jimmy Butler in Phoenix. And part of that includes Miami wanting Bradley Beal, which they've been very clear, especially in the past when it came time to trade for Bradley Beal from the Washington Wizards, that they just aren't that interested. Now, does that mean it's impossible and that it can't happen? Absolutely not. Crazier things have happened in the NBA. Crazier things have happened, I think, with the Phoenix Suns. You look at the fact that they were able to trade for Kevin Durant and how many different chips had to fall in the right place for that to line up and how impossible it felt like for the longest time. Weird things happen in the NBA. And in this version of the NBA, where the players do get what they want a lot of the times, I wouldn't say there's a 0% chance that Jimmy Butler ends up in Phoenix. But the reason why this could end up playing the Suns is because it already has a seemingly big impact on their chemistry. This is a team that's now teetering on, hey, we need to make a really big trade. The fan base is apathetic. Everybody's checked out. We're losing games. The only place that you're getting real consistent defensive effort from is Ryan Dunn and Josh Okogie, a rookie, and your 10th man. It's just not okay right now. And part of that is, hey, this is a team that when they were connected, when they were playing together, talk about, the first 10 to 12 games of the season, they felt like they were a complete unit. Now they feel completely disconnected, right? You have a player like Yusuf Nurkic, whose name has been thrown in trade rumors, Bradley Beal, whose name has been thrown in trade rumors, Grayson Allen, whose name has been thrown in trade rumors, Josh Okogie, all of the above. Even some fans talking about Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, and putting that cloud over a team like this, where they really are trying to form an identity, form this vision of themselves of who they want to be. That's extremely, extremely detrimental. And Jimmy Butler playing into that, playing into the media narrative, playing into the fact that I'm sitting here talking about this because it's my job to discuss what's going on with this team. And right now, Jimmy Butler, and as he has been basically since the start of this slide for Phoenix, where things feel completely disorganized and unconnected, all of this going on is completely Jimmy Butler's fault. And you can look at Miami as well. Like, Miami certainly played a role, but Jimmy has decided to take it this place to the point where he's not playing, and he's not playing hard, where he's making these public statements, whether it's through Asham Sharania, whether it's through his agent, whether it's through himself in post-game pressers. Doing all of that has put an immense amount of pressure, a black cloud over the Phoenix Suns, over Bradley Beal, over everybody. And this is already a team who was dealing with their own on-court problems, their own chemistry problems, right? Their own frustration already boiling over from internal expectations, being down in the gutter, being down in the dirt. That is a massive part of what's going on with this team. And you can only help but think, well, once Jimmy Butler gets traded, which it feels like they're heading towards the inevitable, despite how many people, including myself at a certain point, believe that Pat Riley's going to hold strong. Jimmy's kind of the king of making these kind of things work, right? Whether you're in Minnesota and you show up and you play with the third string in front of the team owner and the GM and you beat the starters, whether you're in Philly, Tobias Harris over me, whether it is now in Miami, either, where you have clearly stated that you do not want to be there anymore and you cannot be happy there. Jimmy Butler's the king of making things uncomfortable. And that's exactly what they are for Miami. So you think maybe there's rumors, maybe they know that Jimmy Butler is going to deny his $50 million player option going into next season and hit free agency and leave Miami for nothing. But you're also looking at a player in their mid to late 30s, during this contract and his future contract nearing 40, and think, is he going to be the kind of guy to walk away from that massive amount of money this late in his career, right? And is Miami willing to bet on that? Or is another team willing to trade assets for him, something that Miami wants? And you might think to yourself, well, once Jimmy Butler gets traded, whether it's to the Phoenix Suns or if it's not to the Phoenix Suns, the fact that he gets moved, the fact that conversation is over, well, then that saves the day. The Phoenix Suns no longer have their chemistry issues, no longer have the problems that Jimmy Butler has helped build in a franchise across the country from his. Well, you'd be wrong. And I'm going to tell you why after I remind everybody that this edition of Southwest Bias is brought to you by Branded Bills. I am wearing my Branded Bills right now, and you can always elevate your brand when it comes to the perfect headwear and apparel. Snapbacks, truckers, fitted, beanies, or tees. Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. And if you're looking for some gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd, well, Branded Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear. Start your order, and their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel you need. I'm right now rocking a Sun Devils hat, of course, rocking my Arizona State Sun Devils, but you can get your own business, whether maybe it's a fantasy football league that you guys have been doing for a decade now at this point, whatever it is, this local company out of Mesa, Arizona is here to help you out. Head to brandedbills.com, use code PHNX for 20% off your first order with the perfect headwear and apparel. And not a lot of time spent on the floor for Jimmy Butler in the fourth quarter, but luckily for him, those floors in the NBA court aren't Empire Today floors, because Empire Today flooring, well, he'd have to fight his way to get onto that, because our friends over at Empire have the best quality flooring in an easy, quick, and convenient world, which is not just an easy, quick, and convenient way to talk about them. No, no, no. Empire today is here to put you in the right flooring the right way, whether it's their virtual floor visualizer, whether it's your free in-home estimates, whether it's the $350 off that they're going to offer just by going to empiretoday.com and using code PHNX. We appreciate all of you listening to Southwest Bias, a solo edition of Southwest Bias here, talking Jimmy Butler. And the question is, well, Erik, if you believe that Jimmy Butler has played a role when it comes to the demise of the Phoenix Suns over the last couple of weeks, does a Jimmy Butler trade to the Phoenix Suns fix it? It might. You still have some inherent problems when it comes to injuries, but the fit would be different if it's a Bradley Beal for Jimmy Butler trade, which it would have to be. And of course, you would have this different edge about your team, but you also have to think like there's a track record. Like time expires with Jimmy, and if you're trading for Jimmy Butler's probably going to want to get extended, and that's a whole different Pandora's box that you're opening up when you're going from Bradley Beal, who has not been fantastic for you. I think he's been great in moments. I think he's been terrible at moments. You even out to about middling. But Bradley Beal is younger. Under contract for longer, but younger. You're now tying your wagon to another mid-30s player and then one who is not performing at the same level as KD. That's a different conversation for if they do it. But then the next question comes up as, well, what if another team trades for Jimmy Butler? That way the Jimmy Butler talk is over, the saga's over, and now, Bradley Beal and the Phoenix Suns can kind of get back to work. Well, you still have the overlying, theme of, hey, trades, Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Josh Okogie, like we are probably going to look to make some moves here to shore up what is not performing to be what we need them to be in this roster. And even beyond that, with just Jimmy Butler specifically, if Jimmy Butler's not getting traded to the Phoenix Suns, then where the hell is he getting traded to? Unfortunately, most of the teams that have been floated out there are teams directly competing with the Phoenix Suns right now. Maybe you could look at the Golden State Warriors, finding a way to extend Steph Curry's career, to build another championship contender around him, move on from a young piece that's been playing well in Jonathan Kuminga, or maybe they can get it for somebody else if Miami's that desperate. But Jimmy Butler on the Golden State Warriors, I think instantly makes them a higher threat in the Western Conference, right? You're looking at a team that adds a forward with defensive versatility to pair next to Draymond. That might be instinctually two of the best defenders on a single team that we've ever seen in the NBA, a paint presence and somebody to draw gravity in for an off-ball player like Steph Curry or Buddy Hield. And what we saw in the perfect Miami days, and it's fallen off a little bit over the last couple of years, is Jimmy Butler's a great facilitator when he needs to be and in important moments. And if you can do that type of stuff and basically have a Draymond-like player on the court at all times, that's something that could unlock the Golden State Warriors. What about somebody else in the West? What about the Houston Rockets? A young team, if they're willing to cash in on some of their young talent and try to make a win now move and bring Jimmy Butler in, bring this edge in with Ime Udoka, with all of their young talent and some of their veteran talent as well. You got to forget this is a team that has a Fred VanVleet who's won a championship, who's later into his career, Steven Adams, who's later into his career as well. You have to think that this might be a team with a championship-ready head coach as well, looking to make a move, and maybe it's not the best move for them long-term, but it could make them more dangerous in the short term. Another team that's been floated out there is the Denver Nuggets, trading Michael Porter Jr. for Jimmy Butler. Now, if they are doing that, this is a team in Denver that's three-point efficiency is pretty good, but their three-point attempt rate is not great. And Michael Porter Jr. being a massive part of that three-point attempt rate, they would have to change their identity. But you look at a player like Russell Westbrook, who quote-unquote lost his joy outside of the Denver Nuggets going and playing with Nikola Jokic, and that completely revived his career. Jimmy Butler, injuries, of course, having to be folded into all of this, whether he wants to play or not. He has dealt with a lot of injuries, and in fact, that's where these problems with Miami stemmed from, with Pat Riley talking about Jimmy talking when he was on the bench and them needing their star players to step up and actually play more. You still have to take that into account, whether you're Golden State, whether you're Houston, whether you're Denver, or whether you're Phoenix, or maybe another Eastern Conference team that could be in the mix as well. Talking about a Detroit, too, a young up-and-coming team. They could move on from, ironically, Tobias Harris, and they can be able to try and get Jimmy Butler in there as well. The reality is is if Jimmy Butler gets moved, especially to a West Coast team, that just adds to the amount of roadblocks in the way for the Phoenix Suns to hit their ceiling this year. And maybe you've already changed your expectations on what the Suns are going to do. Maybe you're already apathetic to the point where you don't believe they can compete. But the Phoenix Suns believe they can compete. They believe they should compete. And if this Jimmy Butler trade ends up not going to them, which does feel like the most likely scenario, given that Jimmy Butler has now announced that he's willing to play for any team, well, it might just get a little extra ugly there. And if you can't get your chemistry right, if you can't make your moves on the margins to shore up your center position, to get a little bit more size on the team, well, we're getting to a dangerous point for the Phoenix Suns. And that's a point that, me personally, I would like them not to reach. You let me know if I'm just doom spiraling right now in the Jimmy Butler saga. You let me know if Jimmy Butler played the Suns. You let me know how you feel about a solo edition of Southwest Bias. Drop a comment below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn notifications on as well. We cover the Suns pre-game, post-game shows for every single game. Plus, we add out a couple daily shows during the week as well, giving you 5 main shows a week, plus pre-game, plus Southwest Bias, plus interviews with Mark Stein, Tim Legler, and everybody of the sorts, all right here on PHNX Sports, not to mention Cardinals, not to mention ASU, not to mention Wildcats, and our D-backs coverage will be revamped and coming back to you shortly. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit that like button, and tune in next week for another edition of Southwest Bias.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.